Right, today I'm going to talk about companies, or azienda. In Italian it's called, we refer to it as azienda. What are they? What are these companies? Very important to understand this because we want to transfer companies. We want to be able to sell a company. But what is a company? If we think about it, it's a collection of goods, of maybe a machinery, a factory, you've got a van, you've got workers. But what really does the company own? What is the possessions of the company? Probably nothing. Maybe even nothing. Maybe everything is rented, or the workers are just hired. The company doesn't own them, or leased. Maybe the vans are leased. So you've got all these contracts. Really, a company is just a lot of contracts and a lot of relationships working together. So this is important to understand. When we sell a company, what exactly are we selling? If we look at this article, 2555, we can see l'azienda è il complesso dei beni organizzati dall'imprenditore per l'esercizio dell'impresa. So there's a difference between a company, azienda, and impresa, which is actually just the economic activity. An entrepreneur's job is to organise these goods to work in the way that does this job, does this impresa. So you've got the workers maybe, which are hired, that's just a relationship, a contract. Maybe a van, which is maybe another contract, it's leased. A factory could be rented, etc. So that's what we consider a company, a collection. In law, it's a collection of goods organised by the entrepreneur to do the economic activity. So the impresa is the economic activity. To transfer a company, you're transferring a lot of contracts, really, a lot of relationships, and often it's very important, this goodwill, avviamento, which basically is the suitability of the company to produce wealth and income. Goodwill, we call it in English, and it often is connected with reputation. It's an intangible asset. Let's have a look at the intangible assets. We've got goodwill, maybe brands are intangible, knowledge, maybe a lot of contacts, a lot of personal contacts that are very important, trademarks, patents. So maybe a company owns an invention, but it's very important, this goodwill. Without that goodwill, without that reputation and those contacts and that trust built up between workers, maybe, it would fail. The company would fail. So it's very important that somebody who does sell a company doesn't start another one and use all their reputation, their trust, their goodwill they've built up to take all the custom from the old company they've sold. Here we've got an article that says chi aliena l'azienda deve astenersi per il periodo di 5 anni dal trasferimento, dall'iniziare una nuova impresa per che per l'oggetto, l'ubicazione o altre circostanze sia idonea a sviare le clientela dell'azienda ceduta. So this is seen as not legitimate competition. If you sell a restaurant and you open a similar one opposite, obviously all your contacts, your workers, maybe they come to you, and it's very unfair. It's called unfair competition, which is illegal in Italy. So it's only for 5 years because we don't want to eliminate the freedom to start a business. Remember, in the Constitution, c'è l'iniziativa economica è libera. So it's always a freedom. We've got the freedom to start an economic activity. But there is a limit to that, and that is if you've just sold a business and then you can't just open another and take, with unfair competition, all the customers of the old business because you have the reputation, you have the goodwill. So there's that to protect. So when you buy a company, you inherit the contracts. Obviously, companies cannot operate if maybe they need a factory and they're renting the factory through a contract, or the workers, they're hiring the workers, all through contracts. If those contracts, when you sell the company, become extinct, become finished, obviously the company cannot operate any longer. So those contracts continue. They are part of the transfer of ownership. Here in the article 2558 it says, se non è pattuito diversamente, l'acquirente dell'azienda subentra nei contratti stipulati per l'esercizio dell'azienda stessa che non abbiano carattere personale. Okay, so if by carattere personale we mean if they're not, if they're part of the patrimony of the entrepreneur, so they're not, haven't got their own patrimony, those contracts cannot stay with the old owner. They also must be, unless it's otherwise agreed, you know, if there is an agreement in the contract that some contracts don't go with the transfer of ownership, that's okay, but otherwise they must, if the company hasn't its own, you know, personal juridical character. But there are cases of personal contracts or a personal nature that can remain with the old owner. For example, you know, a credit card, a bank account, obviously in his name, that will stay with him. Or maybe he has a personal relationship with a lawyer. He's always had that lawyer for many, many years. That will stay with him. So there are certain contracts and certain relationships that he will maintain and won't be part of the patrimony of the company, of the business, because they're of a personal nature. Maybe an accountant that's a personal friend, etc. So, but then we come to the debts of the company, and here we find very important points that need to be considered when you buy or when you sell a company. It says, l'alienante non è liberato dai debiti inerenti all'esercizio dell'azienda ceduta. anteriori al trasferimento, se non risulta che I creditori hanno consentito. So you need permission, you need to create a consensus from the creditors to transfer the debts. The debts in Italian law cannot be transferred to another debtor without the permission, without the consensus of the creditors. So in this case it says nel trasferimento di un'azienda commerciale risponde dei debiti suddetti anche l'acquirente dell'azienda se essi risultano dai libri contabili obbligatori. So if these debts were written in the accounts and so made public, which the creditors would insist on, if they worry about regaining the debt and it could be transferred, etc. Then if it's written into the obligatory accounts, then the person who buys the business, buys the company, is also responsible and also must respond to the debts in that particular case. Again, we've got to remember this is about a business that's not got its own patrimony. It's very easy to transfer a business which is a share ownership, which has shares or a quota, because you just sell the quota or you sell the shares and the business has an autonomous patrimony. So there's no problems in this case. Ownerships change a lot with companies that sell shares, azioni. But we are talking here about businesses that don't have their autonomous patrimony, and how they are treated, and then who is responsible for the debt.